It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show. This is the B block, the Bravo block. We start this around 7:20. Today's date is June 16th. The reason I mention that is because we have a lot of listeners that listen online live or they listen over the air on 104.5, but we got lots of listeners who listen delay on either our podcast version, which you can find at bjshow.co, which I'm having some issues with iPhone, so I'm trying to get that straightened out. And that's not me. That's something with either WordPress or it's something with my server, and I'm trying to get that taken care of. Or you can go to the YouTube channel, and you can go there by bjshow.us. Okay, John, before we get into Brad's top three today, there are sometimes I hear quotes. And if I play something, can I pre-warn you and maybe pull your headphones off a little bit because I'm going to play something?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Because I want you to hear this. Okay, you ready? You ready to pull your headphones off? Okay, here we go. I'm going to play this quote right here. Okay, this is Gavin Newsom.
My message to the country is this. We are a nation of immigrants, and America is an idea. Sure, there are a couple of burned cars and people are waving other countries' flags, but that's L.A. That's what L.A. is about. Dance like nobody's watching, love like you've never been hurt, and skateboard like your dad isn't in prison.
What do you think, John?
Is that a like an AI deep fake, Brad? Did you put that together, or is that some kind of a Facebook meme?
No, that's an AI deep fake. They ran that on Armstrong and Getty show, and the first time I heard it, I thought to myself, "Boy, that's Gavin Newsom," because I really thought it was him, but it wasn't. It's I have been, and John knows this. I am heavily into AI. As a matter of fact, if I told John what I did last night, I have a project that I've been trying to work on. I have a new part of what makes Brad, as crazy as that may sound, and I've been trying to get this going for a while, and my mind has not been cooperative. Keep saying I'm the classic guy with the angel and the devil on my two different shoulders. The angel's going, yes, you can do this. This is going to be a success. And then the devil, which is John Combest, which on the old side, no, Brad, you're going to fail. It's just like our show. It's failing. We don't have enough listeners.
Our show is doing great, Brad. And by the way, I love when you listen to Westplex 104.5 FM, which we can now hear in West St. Louis County. You have recorded station promos that play during the commercials that let people know that they're listening to Westplex 104.5, right?
Yes.
You wouldn't let that opportunity go. Like, you've recorded those so that since you don't spend any money on advertising, when people are pressing buttons and they land on our station, if they want to know what they're listening to, you've pre-recorded promos that say you're listening to Westplex 104.5, right, Brad?
Yeah. You never heard them before?
No.
Oh, they're in there.
Okay, I've never heard a single one.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, you're using AI, and I'd like to point out there was a great comment over the weekend from Camellia Peterson on X about how bad some usage of AI is. And essentially how idiots a lot of times will use AI and not go back and look at it and not make any corrections. And then that's how you can tell that people are using AI not very well.
Camellia, I'm sorry. I'm guilty.
Oh, do you think you're in that cat? Would you ever post something to YouTube that says the Brad and John show?
Oh yeah, I would.
Oh, okay. Anyway, you were talking about your the project that you won't follow through on, Brad, the AI thing.
See, John, do you know, like, there's certain things on the internet where if you try to download a picture, it's got a watermark on it, you know what I'm saying?
I do know that, yeah.
That is how I watermark things, because I, on purpose, when I go into AI and I give it the prompt, and then the last thing I say, make sure you make a glaring error so for everybody to know this is AI.
And then you add lorem ipsum, and you add the phrase once again, and then they're like, oh, that's a Brad Hildebrand suggestion.
Okay. I've been beaten up enough. It's time for me to shine, because you know what it is?
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
It is time for Brad's Top 3. Are they going to say, I get used to this. She say it one more time. Yeah, here she says it. One more time. Yeah, it is Brad's Top 3. John is the star of the show. If we look at the segments that we do on YouTube, John, the A segment, always gets the most people who watch it. That's always the number one. The reason for that is it's all the Ameren UE guys, all the entire lobbyist staff, which I think is about 40 different people here in St. Louis and in Kansas City, who are lobbying the Congress people in Jefferson City. And they are ones to listen to John Combest because they always think, oh my God, John, you did such a good job in complimenting us on getting that bill and hit the first bill that Keogh ever signed.
You were making a point, Brad. But B, occasionally I will link to B, and that's how people listen to B Block or they listen to Brad's Crazy Weird Story C Block.
My crazy weird story. Okay, so this is the third version of this. And John, I've already given him some homework. So here we go with the number 3.
It's number 3.
It is number 3. John, I sent you over the weekend a extremely detailed article about the guy who is what is it called, the Pearl Society. Is that what it is? You know what I'm talking about? You know the one.
Yeah. I didn't read it.
You didn't read it.
No, I don't read stuff from you. It's never meaningful or important.
Okay.
If you wanted me to read it for the show, Brad, just flag that for me and I'll pay attention to it. It's called the link says the $2.1 billion machine behind spontaneous anti-Trump protests.
Right. The guy's name is Asra, A-S-R-A Nomani, Nomani. And he is with, let me look it up here real quick. He's with I can't find it. I thought I had it highlighted here. If you know who Daniel Pearl is the Wall Street Journal reporter who was kidnapped and ultimately beheaded. And they showed the video and they sent the video out, the whole bit. And he was a journalist for Wall Street Journal. And what has happened is there is a group that has been formed which essentially is promoting the fact that true journalism should be heralded. And if you are a true journalist telling the truth, you should not be afraid of the consequences, so to speak. So they're doing, and they've got a fund going, and they've got a lot of interesting information. And essentially what John just said with the headline, the $2.1 billion machine behind spontaneous anti-Trump protests. The amazing thing about this is, and John, we kid about the fact that these quote-unquote spontaneous protests erupt and people show up with the same sign printed, looked like it just came out of, in the old days, Kinko's, and like all spontaneously, everybody went down to Kinko's. I want one of those protest signs. Oh, we've got it all mocked up. Which one do you want? Protest A, protest B, protest C. No, there are companies that are producing these signs and they're giving them to the people. They are paying for these, and it's an interesting article about this. They talk about, they give all the different things. 3 official entities of the Democratic National Committee, College Democrats of America, Manhattan Young Democrats, West Side Democratic Headquarters in Norfolk, Virginia. 16 different Democratic Political Action Committees or PACs, including Friends of Bernie Sanders, Progressive Democrats of America, and Vote Blue. 18 demographic aligned 501c5 labor unions, including lead organizer American AFT, American Federation of Teachers, along with United Auto Workers, Communications Workers of America, National Treasury Employees Union. Total of $1.1 billion in revenue. 76 Democratic aligned political nonprofits, including the ACLU, Sierra Club, League of Conservation Voters, Working Families Organizations, blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on. 47 nonprofits legally restricted from partisan advocacy, including innocuous sounding groups like the Unitarian Universal Association, like that one, Unitarian Universal Association.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Accountable U.S. and the American Humanist Association with $286.7 million to the cause. Okay, now what's interesting about it is you go down and read this article. It talks about the salaries, and this is what I complain about, the not-for-profits, okay? It talks about the salaries these people are making, and it's mind-boggling. Let me see if I can find that paragraph. Talks about what these people are making. Al Sharpton is making here we go, Ren. Okay. Al Sharpton gets $648,786 a year in annual income from the National Action Network. The lady who is the head of the AFT, American Federation of Teachers, Weingarten, what's her name? Randy, I believe. Randy Weingarten.
Randy Weingarten, yeah.
$474,951. And the executive director, you heard about the ACLU, which is this great legal organization, which is always helping out, beleaguered people. Not. The guy who heads the ACLU gets $1.3 million a year. John, once again, you and I made a huge mistake. I know you're Mr. Financial Genius. You should have formed a not-for-profit. And that way, instead of you and me doing the show, you and I would own a TV network, and we would be sitting in expensive leather chairs in front of expensive cameras, and you and I would be doing a TV show, and you and I would be beating CNN and MSNBC, not quite Fox, but we'd have so much money if we had our not-for-profit. John, that's all I want to say about that one. Any comments?
Yeah. I mean, the ACLU guy probably earns his million, but it's hard to, if you look at some of the other salaries, it's hard to explain how they could justify making that money. I think the big takeaway, Brad, and just I read it more succinctly just thumbing through it here in the last few minutes. But it's pretty amazing how the groups coordinate. They have pretty basic templates of signs. They have sample signs provided to them. So it's a really turnkey operation.
Right.
So if you're part of this larger network, you have everything laid out for you. And they make it really easy.
It's almost like a franchise. You know what I mean?
I was just going to say that, Brad. Yeah, if you were to open a Smoothie King, you'd have all the materials right there.
You got everything. You got the logo and the whole bit. And they put this now with the advent of everything being moved around on the internet. You want a piece that you can customize for your own local location. They'll send you a Word document which you just insert. Hey, here in St. Louis, it has like in brackets,
like a form letter.
Right, insert city here, and you just print that thing off and away you go. Okay, you ready for number 2?
I sure am.
It's time for Brad's number 2. It's time for Brad's number 2.
It is. It's time for Brad's number 2. Okay, another article, the Democrats bemoaning the fact that they don't have Joe Rogan. Now, the interesting part of this is that if you know the history of Joe Rogan used to be pretty much a dyed-on-the-wool Democrat. Wouldn't you say that, John?
Yeah, progressive at least, liberal at least.
Right. And they are now saying, this expert, this guy's name is Joe Jacobson. He's an expert, with air quotes. And you know what my mom used to always say? You know what the definition of an expert is?
No, what's that, Brad?
Someone from out of town with a briefcase. That's the definition.
Oh, nice. I like that one.
Back in the old days when people took briefcases, okay? He says Democrats don't need a liberal version of Joe Rogan to win back young male voters, but they do need to engage them on cultural battlegrounds. Now, what would you deem from that? What would you pull from that? If they are saying cultural battlegrounds, what if you were a young man, what would be your culture? And you are a young man. You're like 40 years younger than me.
Yeah, I'm a middle-aged man, but I would say it's I think what they're referring to is the Dems' larger effort to stop the bleeding among the young white male demographic and even the young black male demographic that knows that mainstream society is gynocentric. They hate men. They hate masculinity. They hate anything that involves being a man. So I think that's a big cultural battleground. And then I think also men playing women's sports. So the number of high schools where you see a boy playing against girls in girls' sports, things like that.
John, that is referred to as the various talk shows on this station and other stations. They talk that it's an 80-20 or a 90-10 issue. Do you believe that? In other words, that 90% of the people in the country go, okay, dudes shouldn't be playing against girls in high school sports, right?
I think if you're the left and you've lost Martina Navratilova and J.K. Rowling, you've lost a pretty progressive group.
Right. And to the point where, and was it last week? I didn't get the quote on this. Last week, I know Armstrong and Getty talked about this. One of the news sources came out and said, they've done their research and there's no difference between men and women physically. And I'm going like, what? But
let them keep saying that, Brad, because normal people who might be a swing voter in the suburbs know that that's not true.
The sad part of that is that I am always in awe of female athletes. And if you watch college sports, even to the point where I saw this the other day, there's a woman in college softball who is throwing, I think the record is like 82 miles an hour, and she's consistently throwing 79 mile an hour this is fast pitch softball. But keep in mind the reason you may say, oh, well, the pros are in the 90s and 100s. The difference between the mound and the home plate in professional baseball was what, 60 feet, 60 inches? Is that what it is?
Yeah, 60 feet, 6 inches in baseball, yep.
I believe in women's college softball, I believe it's 45 feet. So if you've got a big old monster softball coming at you at almost 80 miles an hour, and you have 15 feet less, I'll look that up, but I know it's shorter because the base paths are, I think the base paths are like 75.
And I can take that as homework, Brad. I'll go into the Lindenwood girls' locker room and see if I can study any softball players' mounds.
Now get this. He's lauding the Progressive Action Fund, and you know why he's doing that?
Who's he?
This guy, this expert, this Joe Jacobson guy.
Oh, okay.
He says the Progressive Action Fund has gained attention for its risque viral ads featuring, quote, a fictional Republican congressman who invades private moments in bedrooms, bathrooms, and hospitals to enforce so-called conservative policies such as stopping sex, abortion, or denying care to Medicare patients. Have you seen these ads? I haven't.
No, I haven't seen it.
So that's how they're going to combat that. Okay. And last but not least, are you ready for number one, John?
I'm ready, Brad.
And now, big finish, Brad's number.
I talk about nonprofits all the time, and I will come out and say I have my share of interaction with not-for-profits, okay? And I will tell you this story, and I'm going to read this story, but let me give you a little preface there. I used to be involved with a fairly large, prominent not-for-profit here in the St. Louis area. And for one, I won't give too many details because people can figure it out. If I give too many details, I was involved in one of their fundraisers as a participant 1 year with the help of Shelley Barr. We put together a team, and we raised, I think, about $17,000, okay? So I got so much into this, they asked me to be on the board for this particular event. Huge mistake. Because you know why, John?
Why is that, Brad?
Because when we looked at the event, which we were promoting, and I was, quote, on the board for this event, after the smoke cleared, we lost money. So the idea being was people donated all this money, and after the expenses, there was negative amount. In other words, all the people that donated their money, it just went to overhead and administrative costs, okay? Here's the story. San Francisco families outraged to learn $3.8 million in donations meant to build playgrounds were allegedly misused. The San Francisco Parks Alliance, SFPA, a not-profit organization established to create, quote, sustain and advocate for parks, has abruptly shuttered amid a media and legal firestorm over alleged mismanagement involving at least $3.8 million in donations. That leaves donors like Nicola Miner, whose Baker Street Foundation donated $3 million to the SFPA several years ago. She said, speechless. She gave the SFPA that money to support construction of 2 neighborhood playgrounds. Where did the money go? The money went to their salaries, their money went to galas that they put on, and their money essentially went to fundraising, which turned into negative fundraising. They were doing events that cost them more money than they were making. So after so many years, and the crazy part of it is, guess how many parks they built, John? Guess how many parks?
0.0.
Yes. It says, this is from the newspaper article. It says the San Francisco Standard reports that the top employees SFPA got bonuses. They got bonuses despite a, quote, massive deficit, and the not-for-profit spent more on, quote, swanky galas and fundraising events than it made. And it says, here's the guy from nonprofits ethics expert. He's a professor at Santa Clara University. He says, you would never in a million years give a bonus under these circumstances. But yet they got bonuses because, you know why they got bonuses, John?
Why is that?
They got a bonus for showing up to work. Hey, you show up.
Yeah, why not, right? We should reward that kind of behavior.
Right, you show up 5 days in a row, bonus. You sit at your desk for at least 3 hours a day, bonus. You essentially take your company car that the not-for-profit is paying for to the car wash and get it cleaned once a week, bonus. That's how they got their bonuses, right?
So I think what you do a really good job of, Brad, is highlighting the fact that before people write a check to any given nonprofit, like, why wouldn't you look at their expenses and what percentage of the money actually goes to, curing that cancer or building that playground? And the answer is probably not much.
John, I told the story once before. I'll tell it again because it's appropriate right now. We haven't done anything with this organization for like maybe 15 years, but probably 25, 26 years ago when I first bought the radio stations, had a woman approach us from one of the, if I said the not-for-profit, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And we went above and beyond the call of duty for her, did tons of promotion on the air, showed up events and things like that. And she took me out to lunch one day, and she liked alcoholic beverages. And she had, I think, 1 or 2 too many, and she became it was almost like there was sodium pentothal in those drinks. And
a truth serum, right, if you will.
And she became very uninhibited about telling me things. And she came out and said that her particular organization ran each of the district offices, which she managed, And what they did was they were given a goal of how much money after expenses they were supposed to send to the national organization. And she admitted to me that for 3 years, she sent nothing to the national organization that they were promoting. And all the revenue that was generated by fundraisers was essentially eaten up by her office rent, her salary, her expenses, and her employees. So all the people who donated money to that organization, none of that went to cure this disease. How about that, John?
Let me be cynical here, Brad. If you were someone who gave money to that organization, are you or are you not a sucker?
You know, I agree with you, but the problem on this is, and she sort of admitted to this would never come up because the local organizations weren't audited. The national was. So in other words, they're operating sort of like independent contractors, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? We're to the point where
so they're able to use the name to raise money, but they have no accountability.
Well, they are officially part of the organization, but yet they don't have any accountability on a local level other than to the organization. And the organization is not going to come out and say, well, you know, that gal in St. Louis has been running our office there. She never gives us any money. She's supposed to, her goal is to, give us
$500,000 a year, but
right.
She never comes through.
We never get any money from her.
But she has a big gala every year, and her face is in St. Louis Magazine.
John, you gave it away.